Well, to get a bit more perspective on the strikes, I'm joined on the set by political analyst Jean-Christophe Gallien. Jean-Christophe, thank you for coming in. The final vote in Parliament on the reform is due to be held tomorrow, Thursday. There's been lots of conflict over this pension reform in Parliament. President Macron's party doesn't have an absolute majority. Party officials are admitting the numbers are tight. Do you think that they have, despite that, come to a consensus?
Today, nobody can tell about that. Even the head of the Republicans group at the National Assembly Eric Ciotti, cannot today bet on what's going to happen tomorrow because it's impossible. Some do feel at the government they have that majority and they try to push it as a confident. Today is anecdotal. The Commission Mixte Paritaire today, which is done today, is something that's already done. But tomorrow something is happening. Around the assembly, for example, the two leaders of the Republican Party, which are outside, are not elected, but they are the ones that would be going on to 2027 at the presidential election, do feel they would love tomorrow there will be no vote and the government had to use the 49.3 article, which is something that imposes the project to the assembly, and they would love it because to them and to many people that would be a defeat for the government on that political project, not on the technical part, because it would be done, but on the political way afterwards something would happen. So nothing's very clear today. It used to be a bit more clearer last week. Today and tomorrow, of course, people are waiting what's happening today, and there's lots of pressure from the base. The elected people tomorrow will be at the same time doing something around the party. Some of them are playing their own part, like Monsieur Pradier, but the other ones are already betting what's happening afterwards.
What about the strike movement itself? Here again, we have this broad alliance of unions who are joining together for this 8th day of street protests. We can see these live pictures on the screen. Would you say, though, that the strike movement's getting weaker or stronger? There were fewer people who turned out on Saturday.
It's difficult to say the same. If you look at the score, you would say yesterday there was less people on the streets, and tomorrow, today, the same way. But things are intensified. Again, the base is very strong. The unions at the top level are very united because their bases are very active and on different moods. They are not only walking in the streets; they are doing things in the companies, in the streets, after work, sometimes like that. And the push. For example, you're talking about the street, the physical street, but the digital street at the same time is very active. So nobody can tell tomorrow what happens will be. This is the stop of the movement. Probably, if this 49.3 article goes on, it will fuel the street battle, because that's what's hoping the left side on the political part. It looks like if there's 49.3, the movement would not stop and would grow probably.
But what would that change, though?
It won't. That's the point. You're right. The large majority of the French people are backing up the movement against the reform project on the pensions. But at the same time, in that majority, there is a majority that doesn't feel they could push the government to drop down at least part of the project or the whole project. So it's quite difficult to understand what's happening. But at the same time, there are the subjects, the other issues around the project, the inflation, the prices, whatever. And the whole thing is moving against Emmanuel Macron and the government, because it's aggregating, like if the project, the central engine was the project, but the whole fueling comes from different parts of the society.
Do you feel like the whole culture of striking has changed since the pandemic? I mean, so many people work from home now, so we don't feel it as much, this transport chaos, like we did, say, 15, 20 years ago, the last time there was such a big strike, except for the garbage collectors, very visible, very smelly. Do you think that that's kind of changing the way that the French strike?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you feel that the people that are going down the street are quite different, and the fact is that smaller cities were impacted by this movement. That's part of something that's intensifying. That's against what you were talking about. But at the same time, the way of trying to struggle against the project has changed. People are doing it again physically or digitally from home. You're right. The same. Is it striking from home? I don't know, but something has changed. But the way people are moving against the project has changed the same, because they know since the Gilets jaunes, part of things can be done in the street, but part of things can be done differently. Again, the ways of working are not only grassroots, but going on the digital part of the same time.
What's your take on this whole thing, the French pension system itself? It's one of the most generous among industrialized nations. Macron's argument is he just wants to bring France in line with the rest of Europe. Do you agree?
Probably, if you look at in comparison, if you look at something that matches UK, Germany, Spain, whatever, Portugal, inside the EU, let's not go further. You're quite right. Macron just tells the people, the whole movement globally is that movement. We need to be able to connect with that. If not, we're going to have trouble. But at the same time, if you look at the specificity of the French pension system, it's not so clear. It depends on the way of you looking at the scores of data. And at the same time, culturally, he's wrong, because the people really want to stick with that rights that have been, for some of them, been acquired by struggle, very hard social struggle. That it is still in that kind, look at the movement of the youth part of the movement. You can't understand why these people are looking at what could happen in 40 years from now if they're not having work for tomorrow. And that's reality tomorrow. The real problem, the real issue is how the young get work and how that work is paid, and not really what has happened in 40 years. But it's still in that, general cultural heritage that goes in through the family, and probably what's left with what they used to think about the social system in France, which is the pension. That's the only thing that's left, really.
Indeed. All right, Jean-Christophe, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. Jean-Christophe Gallien, thank you.
Thank you.